The massive doors of the council chamber slid open with a soft hiss. Ambassador Jake Morrison walked through them with steady steps. His black suit was perfectly pressed, and his face showed no emotion. Behind him walked Captain Lisa Baker in her crisp military uniform. Her hand rested near her sidearm, but her eyes stayed calm and alert. The chamber was huge. It could hold 1,000 beings from across the galaxy. Today, it held only the most important leaders of the Galactic Federation. At the center sat Chancellor Vex Thara. She was 8 feet tall with 4 arms and skin like black metal. Her compound eyes reflected the light in strange ways. Next to her sat High Arbiter Zalmok. His body was made of living crystal that hummed with energy. Blue light pulsed through his transparent form with each thought. Around them sat dozens of other alien leaders. The snake-like Thessians coiled in their special chairs. The bear-like Vraxians sat with their massive claws folded. The floating ethereals drifted in their containment fields. All of them watched the 2 humans with expressions that ranged from bored to amused. Morrison and Baker walked across the polished floor. Their footsteps echoed in the vast space. They reached the center of the chamber and stopped. Morrison clasped his hands behind his back and waited. Chancellor Vexithera leaned forward. Her voice was like grinding metal when she spoke. Ambassador Morrison, Captain Baker, thank you for coming so quickly. You said it was urgent, Morrison replied. His voice was calm and steady. Indeed it is. The Chancellor's 4 arms moved as she spoke. The Federation Council has made an important decision about humanity's future role in our alliance. Baker felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her face neutral. Morrison simply nodded. We're listening. High Arbiter. Zalmok's crystal form flashed brighter. His voice was like singing glass. For 3 years now, humanity has served the Federation well. Your engineers have fixed problems that stumped our greatest minds. Your soldiers have won battles that others called impossible. Your diplomats have made peace where we saw only war. We've done our duty, Morrison said simply. Yes, you have. Chancellor Vexithera stood up. Her 8-foot frame cast a long shadow over the humans. But the Council has decided that humanity's current status is no longer appropriate. Morrison's expression didn't change. In what way? You currently hold equal voting rights with species that have been part of the Federation for thousands of years. You control 12 star systems. You have military autonomy. These privileges were given too hastily. Baker's hand moved slightly toward her weapon. Morrison noticed but didn't look at her. He kept his eyes on the Chancellor. What exactly are you proposing? The Thessian ambassador Silvara uncoiled from her chair. Her voice was a soft hiss. Humanity will accept junior species status. You will surrender your voting rights on all major decisions. Your military forces will be integrated. Under Federation command, your territory will be reduced to 3 systems. In exchange, added a Vraxian general named Thokran, you will be allowed to remain in Federation space. You will receive protection and trade rights. Morrison was quiet for a long moment. The chamber fell silent except for the soft hum of the station's systems. Every alien leader watched him with the confidence of those who held all the power. What if we refuse? Morrison asked finally. Chancellor Vexithera's compound eyes glittered. Then you will be expelled from Federation space. Your ships will be banned from our trade routes. Your colonies will receive no protection from pirates or hostile species. You will be alone in a galaxy that does not forgive weakness. The hegemony would destroy you within a year, added High Arbiter Zalmok. The Void Syndicate would enslave your populations. You need us far more than we need you. Morrison looked around the chamber. He saw the same expression on every alien face: confidence, amusement, the look of beings who knew they held all the cards. I see, Morrison said quietly. He turned to Baker. Captain, what's your assessment of our situation? Baker's voice was crisp and professional. 12 human systems against thousands of Federation worlds. Our fleet numbers in the hundreds while theirs counts in the tens of thousands. From a purely military standpoint, we're completely outmatched. There you have it, Chancellor Vexthara said with what passed for a smile among her species. Accept our generous terms or face destruction. The choice is simple. Morrison nodded slowly. He looked down at the floor for a moment as if deep in thought. The aliens waited patiently. They had all the time in the galaxy. When Morrison looked up again, his face was still perfectly calm. We respectfully decline. The chamber fell dead silent. Chancellor Vexithera's 4 arms froze in mid-gesture. High Arbiter Zalmok's crystal form dimmed with confusion. Around the chamber, dozens of alien faces showed the same expression of complete shock. I'm sorry, Silvara hissed finally. Did you say decline? That's correct, Morrison replied. Humanity refuses your terms. But you just heard Captain Baker's assessment, Thokran growled. You're completely outmatched. Yes, we are, Morrison agreed. Which is why we're not going to fight you. Then what exactly do you plan to do? Chancellor Vexithera demanded. Morrison straightened his jacket and looked directly into her compound eyes. We're going home. Home? Effective immediately, all human personnel, ships, and resources are withdrawing from Federation space. Every human engineer, soldier, scientist, diplomat, trader, and civilian will return to human territory. We'll close our borders and have no further contact with the Federation. The silence in the chamber was deafening. High Arbiter Zalmok was the first to speak. You can't be serious. Completely serious, Morrison replied. If the Federation doesn't value humanity as equals, then humanity has no place in the Federation. But you need us, Chancellor Vexithera said. Her voice had lost some of its confidence. Your trade routes, your protection, your access to advanced technology. We'll manage without them, Morrison said simply. This is madness, Silvara hissed. You're condemning your entire species to isolation and eventual destruction. Morrison smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Maybe. But that's our choice to make. He turned to Baker. Captain, please, send the withdrawal order to all human forces. Baker pulled out a small communication device. All human assets. This is Baker. Execute Protocol 7 immediately. Repeat, execute Protocol 7. Around the chamber, alien leaders began talking at once. Their voices rose in confusion and anger. Chancellor Vexithara slammed one of her 4 fists on her chair. This is absurd. You're throwing away everything over pride. No, Morrison said quietly. We're walking away from people who see us as tools instead of allies. He turned toward the chamber doors. Baker fell into step beside him. They walked across the polished floor with the same steady pace they had used when entering. Wait, called High Arbiter Zalmok. Let's discuss this rationally. Perhaps we can reach a compromise. Morrison stopped and looked back. The time for discussion was before you decided our fate without consulting us. Good luck with your future endeavors. The 2 humans walked through the massive doors. As they closed behind them, the chamber erupted in angry voices and confused arguments. But Morrison and Baker were already gone, heading for the docking bay where their ship waited. In 12 hours, every human in Federation space would receive the withdrawal order. In 24 hours, the exodus would begin. The Galactic Federation was about to learn what they had really lost. Commander Rick Hayes stood in the control room of Titan Forge Station. The massive space platform stretched for miles in every direction around him. Through the viewing windows, he could see the giant construction bays where Federation warships took shape. Sparks flew from welding torches operated by workers from a dozen different species. The sound of metal on metal echoed through the corridors. His communication device buzzed. Rick pulled it from his pocket and read the message. Protocol 7. His face went pale. He had hoped this day would never come, but every human in the Federation knew what those words meant. Attention all human personnel, Rick announced over the station intercom. Report to Docking Bay 7 immediately. Bring only personal items. Leave all workstations and equipment as they are. The alien workers stopped what they were doing. Foreman Klextar slithered over on his 6 legs. His blue skin was covered in oil stains from the reactor work. Commander Hayes, what is the meaning of this? We're leaving, Rick said simply. Leaving? But the new reactor design is almost finished. Without your team, we cannot complete the modifications. Rick was already walking toward the exit. That's not my problem anymore. Behind him, human engineers began shutting down their workstations. They moved quickly and efficiently. Sarah Martinez closed her design files and locked her computer. Tony Walsh gathered his tools and headed for the exit. Linda Chen finished her calculations and left them on her desk for whoever might try to continue her work. Klextar followed Rick down the corridor. You cannot simply abandon the project. The new fusion reactors are critical for our next generation of ships. Find someone else to build them, Rick replied. But no one else understands your design principles. The way humans approach engineering problems is completely different from any other species. Rick stopped walking and turned to face the alien foreman. Then maybe you should have thought about that before your government decided we weren't worth keeping around. In the engineering section, Dr. Amy Foster was packing her research notes. The laboratory around her was filled with samples and equipment worth millions of credits. For 8 months, she had worked day and night to find a cure for the Helix plague. The disease had already killed billions across 7 Federation worlds. Her assistant, a tall Altarian named Velcor, watched her with confusion. Dr. Foster, where are you going? We are so close to a breakthrough. Amy sealed the last of her personal files in a secure case. I'm going home. But the plague victims need your help. Your research approach is unlike anything we have seen before. Then you'll have to figure it out without me. Amy headed for the door. Wait, Velcor called after her. At least leave your research data. Let us continue your work. Amy stopped in the doorway. My research data is in my head, not in your computers. I was trained to think differently than you. That's what made me useful. Now that usefulness is no longer wanted. She walked out of the laboratory. Behind her, Velcor stared at the equipment and samples that were suddenly useless without the human scientist who knew how to use them. On the border world of Sigma Tertius, General Paul Grant received the withdrawal order while planning the next phase of Operation Steelhammer. The campaign against the Void Syndicate pirates was going better than anyone had expected. His forces had won 3 major battles in the past month. Colonel Darthek of the Vraxian military looked at the tactical displays. General Grant, the enemy is retreating toward the Nebula Passage. If we strike now, we can end their threat to this entire sector. Paul was reading his orders on a secure tablet. Protocol 7. He looked up at the expectant faces around the command table. Representatives from 6 different species waited for his decision. Change of plans, Paul said. All human forces are withdrawing immediately. Withdrawing? Colonel Darthek's bear-like face showed confusion. But we are winning. Not anymore. Paul stood up and began gathering his maps and data files. Major Stevens, order all Strike Corps units to return to base. We're packing up. Sir, what about the operation? Asked Major Stevens. Let someone else finish it. Colonel Darthek slammed his massive paw on the table. You cannot abandon us now. Your tactical innovations are the reason we have been successful. Paul looked at the alien officer. I'm not abandoning you. I'm following orders from people who decided my species isn't worth keeping around. But without human leadership, the pirates will regroup. They will strike back at our supply lines. Then you better figure out how to stop them. Paul walked toward the exit. Good luck. In space above the colony world of New Harmony, Admiral Susan Cole commanded a fleet of 30 human warships. They were escorting a convoy of Federation supply ships through pirate-infested space. The convoy carried medical supplies and food to 12 different worlds. Her communications officer looked up from his station. "Admiral, we're receiving Protocol 7. Susan felt her stomach tighten. She had been expecting this for days, but it still hit her like a physical blow. "Confirm the order." "Confirmed, ma'am. All human forces are to withdraw from Federation space immediately." Susan looked at the tactical display. The convoy was still 6 hours from its destination. The route ahead was known to contain at least 3 pirate bases. Without her ships providing escort, the convoy would be easy prey. "Signal the convoy commander," she ordered. "Tell them we're breaking off." "Ma'am, shouldn't we at least get them to safety first?" Susan was quiet for a moment. These supply ships carried medicine that would save thousands of lives, food that would prevent famine on 3 worlds. But her orders were clear. Negative. "We follow Protocol 7 immediately. Set course for human space." The Federation convoy commander, a Thessian named Silmar, appeared on the main screen. "Admiral Cole, why are your ships changing course?" "We're returning to human territory. You'll have to continue without us." "Without escort? The pirates will destroy us before we reach the next system." "That's not my problem anymore." "But thousands will die if this convoy doesn't reach its destination." Susan looked at the alien commander for a long moment. "Then maybe your government should have considered that before they decided humanity wasn't worth keeping as equals." She cut the transmission and turned to her navigation officer. "Jump to hyperspace as soon as we're clear of the convoy." Across Federation space, the same scene played out thousands of times. Human doctors walked away from patients they were treating. Human teachers left their classrooms. Human traders closed their businesses. Human scientists abandoned their experiments. In every case, the aliens they left behind asked the same questions. "Why are you leaving? How will we manage without you? Who will solve the problems that only humans seem able to solve?" And in every case, the humans gave the same answer. "Find someone else. We're going home." On research stations and mining platforms, in hospitals and schools, aboard warships and cargo vessels, humanity began its exodus. They moved with quiet efficiency, taking only what belonged to them personally, and leaving behind everything they had built for the Federation. The aliens watched them go with growing confusion and the first hints of fear. For 3 years, humans had been the problem solvers, the innovators, the ones who made the impossible happen. Now they were walking away, and for the first time the Federation realized they had no idea how to replace them. The withdrawal was just beginning, but already, cracks were starting to show in the foundation of galactic civilization. 6 months had passed since the last human ship disappeared from Federation space. On Titan Forge Station, Foreman Klextar stared at the twisted wreckage of what had once been the pride of Federation engineering. The new fusion reactor had exploded. During its first test, taking half the station with it, emergency crews worked frantically to contain the radiation leaks. The dead floated in space around the station, their bodies twisted by the force of the explosion. Klextar's 6 legs shook as he surveyed the damage through the observation window. "How many?" he asked his assistant. 347 dead, sir. 500 more injured. The entire primary construction bay is gone." Klextar closed his eyes. The humans had warned them about the reactor design. Commander Hayes had left detailed notes about the cooling system modifications needed for the new fusion matrix. But the notes made no sense to the alien engineers who tried to follow them. Human engineering was different. Where other species followed rigid mathematical formulas, humans seemed to work by instinct. They felt their way through problems that should have been impossible to solve. The Federation's best scientists had tried to replicate their methods for months, but every attempt ended in failure. "Sir, what do we tell the Council?" his assistant asked. "The truth," Klextar replied. "We cannot build the new ships without human expertise." Halfway across the galaxy, Dr. Velcor stood in his laboratory staring at rows of empty beds. The Helix plague had spread to 17 more worlds since Dr. Foster left. The death toll now reached into the billions. Velcor had spent every waking hour trying to understand the human doctor's research. Her notes were clear enough, but they described approaches that no other species had ever considered. She had been working on something called immune system enhancement rather than direct viral suppression. The concept was simple in theory but impossible in practice. Every time Velcor tried to replicate her work, the test subjects died horrible deaths. The human approach required an understanding of biological systems that seemed to come naturally to their species but was completely foreign to everyone else. "Doctor, we have another request from the Helix worlds," his assistant announced. "They are begging for any kind of treatment." Velcor looked at the latest death reports. Entire cities were being abandoned as the plague spread. The Federation's traditional medical approaches had slowed the disease but could not stop it. Only the human research had shown real promise of a cure. "Tell them we are still working on it," Velcor said quietly, but in his heart he knew the truth. Without Dr. Foster, billions more would die. On the border world of Sigma Tertius, Colonel Darthek watched his forces retreat for the third time in 2 months. The Void Syndicate pirates had regrouped exactly as General Grant predicted. Without human tactical leadership, every Federation strategy failed within days. The pirates seemed to know exactly how Federation forces would respond to any given situation. Their attacks came at the perfect moments to cause maximum damage. Supply lines that had been secure for months suddenly became death traps. "Colonel, we have lost another convoy," reported his communications officer. "The pirates hit them just outside the Kepler system." Darthek slammed his massive paw against the command console. "How do they know exactly where to strike?" "Sir, they are using the same tactics that General Grant used against them, but now they are using those tactics against us." The truth hit Darthek like a physical blow. The pirates had been watching human military operations for months. They had learned from every human victory, every human innovation. But when the humans left, only the pirates remembered those lessons. Federation military doctrine was thousands of years old and completely predictable. Human military thinking was creative, flexible, and constantly changing. The pirates had adapted to fight humans, which made them nearly unbeatable against traditional Federation forces. "How many ships have we lost this month?" Darthek asked. 47 warships, sir. 133 cargo vessels. The pirates are growing stronger while we grow weaker." In the financial district of Nexus Prime, Chancellor Vexathara studied economic reports that made her compound eyes ache. The numbers were terrible and getting worse every day. Human trading companies had handled 30% of all Federation commerce. When they withdrew, they took their shipping networks, their banking systems, and their economic innovations with them. The carefully balanced galactic economy was collapsing like a house built on sand. "The Rigel sector is reporting food shortages," announced her economic advisor. Human cargo ships were their primary supply line. "What about the Antares Mining Consortium? Closed down completely. They cannot move their products without human shipping networks." Vexathara looked at the holographic display showing trade routes across Federation space. Red lines marked routes that no longer functioned. Yellow lines showed routes operating at reduced capacity. Only a few green lines remained, and those were failing rapidly. How did we become so dependent on them? She wondered aloud. "Humans were simply more efficient than anyone else," her advisor replied. "Their companies offered better services at lower costs. Over time, everyone began using human businesses instead of their own species alternatives. Now those alternatives were gone too. 3 years of competition with superior human methods had driven most alien companies out of business. The Federation was left with an economy that depended on a species they had driven away." High Arbiter Zalmok materialized in the Chancellor's office, his crystal form pulsing with agitation. "Vexthara, we need to talk. If it is about the economic situation, I already know how bad things are. It is worse than economics." Zalmok's form flashed brighter. "I have been reviewing our military records from the past decade. The results are disturbing." The High Arbiter activated a holographic display showing dozens of Federation military victories. Each one was marked with detailed tactical analyses. "Every major victory we achieved in the last 10 years had one thing in common," Zalmok continued. "Human involvement was not just present, but decisive." "What do you mean?" "I mean, we did not win those battles. Humans won them for us." The holographic display showed battle after battle, where human tactical innovations had turned certain defeat into victory. Human commanders had inspired alien troops to fight beyond their normal capabilities. Human strategies had overcome impossible odds through creative thinking that no other species could match. "Look at this pattern," Zalmok pointed to the tactical displays. "In every case, Federation forces were losing until human units arrived. Then the entire battle changed." Chancellor Vexthara felt a cold certainty settling in her minds. "Are you saying we were never as strong as we thought?" "I am saying we were never strong at all. We were carried by a species we treated as junior partners." The two leaders stood in silence, absorbing the magnitude of their mistake. Around them, the Federation continued its slow collapse. Without human innovation, human determination, and human leadership, the great galactic civilization was revealing itself to be nothing more than an illusion. "What have we done?" Vexthara whispered, but it was too late for regret. Humanity was gone, and the price of their absence was becoming clearer every day. 2 years had passed since humanity walked away from the Federation. The galaxy was burning, and Chancellor Vexthara knew it was her fault. She stood in her private chambers looking out at Nexus Prime's capital city. Half the buildings were dark, because the power grid kept failing. Refugee ships filled the sky as more worlds fell to plague, pirates, or simple economic collapse. Her communication system chimed. "Chancellor Ambassador Kiltar is requesting an urgent meeting." Vexthara knew this day would come. Kiltar was one of the few aliens who had actually respected humanity during their time in the Federation. He had warned the Council that driving humans away would be a disaster. Now he was probably here to say he told them so. "Send him in." Kiltar entered the chamber. He was a tall, thin being with gray skin and large black eyes. His species, the Kelhari, were known for their wisdom and long memory. He walked slowly, as if carrying a great weight. "Chancellor," he said with a slight bow. "Kiltar, I assume you have come to discuss our current situation." "I have come to offer a solution." Kiltar moved to the window and looked out at the dying city. "Though I doubt you will like it, I'm listening. Send me to Earth. Let me negotiate with the humans. Offer them whatever they want to return." Vexthara felt her compound eyes flicker with hope. "Do you think they would listen?" "I was one of the few who treated them as equals. Ambassador Morrison knows me. He might at least hear what I have to say." "What would we offer them?" Kiltar turned from the window. "Everything. Full Federation membership with voting rights, expanded territory, seats on the High Council, complete military autonomy, whatever they want." "The other council members will never agree to that. The other council members are fools who destroyed the greatest alliance in galactic history because of their pride." Kiltar's voice was cold. "Half of them are dealing with civil wars on their own worlds. The rest are watching their economies collapse. They will agree to anything if it means survival." Chancellor Vexthara considered the proposal. It was humiliating to beg from a species they had dismissed as inferior. But the alternative was watching civilization die. "Go," she said finally. "Try to bring them back." 3 days later, Kiltar's ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. He had expected to find a small defensive fleet, maybe a few patrol ships. What he saw instead made his blood freeze. Hundreds of human warships filled the space around Earth. But these were not the ships he remembered from 2 years ago. These vessels were sleek and deadly, incorporating technology that the Federation had never seen. They moved with precision that spoke of advanced artificial intelligence and weapons systems beyond anything in the known galaxy. "Unknown vessel, this is Earth Defense Command," came a voice over the communication system. "State your business." "This is Ambassador Kiltar of the Kalahari. I am here under a flag of truce to speak with Ambassador Morrison." There was a long pause. Then a different voice came on the line. "Ambassador Kiltar, this is Admiral Kate Parker. Ambassador Morrison is expecting you. Follow the escort ships to Luna Station." 2 human fighters appeared beside his ship. Kiltar noticed immediately that they were unlike any fighters the Federation had ever built. They were smaller, but radiated. Power that suggested devastating weapons in a compact package. As they flew toward Luna Station, Kiltar saw more evidence of human advancement. Mining operations throughout the asteroid belt used technology that harvested resources at impossible speeds. Construction platforms built ships using automated systems that worked faster than any organic crew. Luna Station itself was a marvel. It had grown from a simple diplomatic outpost into a massive complex that rivaled Nexus Prime in size and beauty. But where Federation architecture was built for intimidation, human design focused on efficiency and elegance. Ambassador Morrison met him at the docking bay. The human looked older than Kiltar remembered. His hair was grayer and lines of stress marked his face. But his eyes were sharp and alert. "Kiltar," Morrison said with a slight smile. "It has been a long time." "Too long, my friend. Though I suspect you might not consider me a friend anymore. You were one of the few who treated us with respect. That still means something." They walked through the station corridors. Kiltar noticed that the humans they passed looked confident and purposeful. There was none of the desperation he saw throughout Federation space. Morrison led him to an observation deck with a transparent aluminum window that looked out into space. What Kiltar saw there made his heart skip. A massive human fleet was gathered in formation. Hundreds of ships and designs he had never seen before. Sleek destroyers that hummed with barely contained energy. Massive carriers that launched fighter craft like swarms of deadly insects. And at the center, a command ship that dwarfed anything the Federation had ever built. "Impressive, is it not?" Morrison said quietly. "How is this possible? 2 years. Ego, your fleet numbered in the hundreds. We were so busy solving everyone else's problems that we never had time to reach our full potential." Morrison turned to face the Kalahari ambassador. "Thank you for giving us that time." Kiltar felt a growing sense of dread. "Jake, I came here to ask you to return. The Federation is dying without human expertise. I know. Billions are dead from the plague. The economy has collapsed. Pirates control half the trade routes. Worlds are declaring independence every day. I know that too. We were wrong. We were fools. We offer you everything. Full membership, expanded territory, anything you want." Morrison was quiet for a long moment. He looked out at the human fleet with an expression that Kiltar could not read. "Do you know what we have been doing for the past 2 years?" Morrison asked finally. "Apparently building the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. More than that, we have been reaching out to other species. The ones the Federation dismissed as primitive or unimportant. The ones you ignored or looked down upon." Morrison activated a holographic display. It showed star maps with dozens of systems marked in blue. The Zephyrians, whose art you called worthless. The Corvani, whose technology you deemed primitive. The Deltans, whose philosophy you mocked. They all remember how the Federation treated them. "What are you saying?" "I am saying we are building something new. An alliance based on cooperation, instead of domination, respect instead of arrogance, innovation instead of stagnation." Kiltar stared at the star map. An alliance to replace the Federation. An alliance that will make the Federation irrelevant. But surely you remember the good times. The friendship between our peoples. Morrison smiled sadly. I remember you. Kiltar. You were always different, but you were one voice among hundreds that saw us as tools instead of partners. We can change. We can be better. Some lessons can only be learned the hard way, and some mistakes cannot be undone. Morrison walked Kiltar back to his ship. At the docking bay, the Kelhari ambassador made one last attempt. What if I offered you control of the entire Federation? Complete authority over all member worlds? Morrison stopped walking. For a moment, Kiltar thought he had found something that would tempt the human. The Federation made its choice when it decided we were not worthy of respect, Morrison said finally. We have made our choice too. We are building something better. Kiltar's ship left Luna Station carrying news that would shatter what remained of Federation leadership. Humanity did not need them anymore. If anything, they had grown so far beyond the Federation that returning would be a step backward. As his ship jumped to hyperspace, Kiltar took one last look at the human fleet. In the distance, he could see ships from other species flying alongside, the human vessels. The new alliance was already forming, and the Federation was not invited to join. 5 years had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Federation. Admiral Kate Parker stood on the bridge of the Earth's Dawn, humanity's new flagship. Through the massive view screen, she watched a convoy of refugee ships limping toward human space. Their hulls were scarred by weapon fire and their engines barely functioned. Admiral, we are receiving distress calls from the convoy, reported her communications officer. They are requesting permission to enter human territory. Kate studied the ships through her tactical display. Most were from species that had supported humanity during their time in the Federation. The Corvani exploration vessels, Deltan research ships, and a few Kelhari diplomatic transports. But mixed among them were vessels from species that had demanded humanity's subjugation. Scan the ships and identify their origins, Kate ordered. Yes, ma'am. We have Corvani, Deltans, Kelhari, and several others. But we also have Thessian vessels and 3 Varaxian military transports. Kate's expression hardened. The Thessians and Varaxians had been among the loudest voices calling for humanity's reduction to junior status. Now they were fleeing the chaos their decision had created. Signal the convoy. Tell them to maintain position while we review their request. On the planet below, Jake Morrison sat in his office reading reports from across what had once been Federation space. The news was grim but not surprising. The Helix Plague had consumed over 200 worlds. The economy had collapsed completely, leaving entire star systems without trade or supplies. Pirate fleets controlled most of the major shipping routes. But the worst news came from the political reports. The Federation government had fractured into dozens of competing factions. Some worlds had declared independence and were fighting civil wars. Others had formed small alliances that spent more time fighting each other than solving their problems. Mr. Secretary, his assistant announced, we have a priority transmission from the remnants of the Federation Council. Morrison looked up from his reports. The Council still exists? Barely, sir. Chancellor Vexthera is requesting an immediate meeting with you. Morrison considered the request. 5 years ago, Vexthera had dismissed humanity as unworthy of equal treatment. Now she was begging for attention from the species she had cast aside. Put her through. The holographic projector activated, showing Chancellor Vexthera in what appeared to be a damaged chamber. Her 4 arms trembled with exhaustion, and her compound eyes had lost their former arrogance. Behind her, Morrison could see burn marks on the walls and emergency lighting casting eerie shadows. Ambassador Morrison, she began, then corrected herself. Secretary Morrison, thank you for accepting my call. Chancellor, you look tired. I am dying, Morrison. We all are. Morrison studied the alien leader who had once commanded the loyalty of thousands of worlds. Now she looked like a broken creature clinging to the remnants of a failed empire. "What do you want, Vexthera?" "I want to offer you the Federation, complete control, every remaining world, every ship, every resource. Take it all." Morrison leaned back in his chair. "And why would I want a collection of dying worlds and broken governments? Because you could save them, save us. You humans have always been the ones who fix impossible problems. We used to do that, when we were partners instead of servants. We were wrong." The words seemed to cause Vexthera physical pain. "We were blind, arrogant fools who threw away the most valuable thing in the galaxy." Morrison looked at the desperate, alien leader for a long moment. He felt no satisfaction in her fall, only sadness for the waste of it all. "I am sorry, Chancellor, but humanity has moved beyond the Federation." "Then what am I supposed to tell the billions who are suffering? What hope can I offer them?" "The same hope you offered us 5 years ago. Find someone else to solve your problems." Morrison ended the transmission. Outside his window, he could see ships from the Human Alliance moving through Earth's orbital space. Corvani explorers worked alongside human research vessels. Deltan philosophers shared their wisdom with human scientists. Zephyrian artists collaborated on projects that created beauty beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. In the 5 years since leaving the Federation, humanity had not simply survived. They had built something better. The Human Alliance was everything the Federation should have been, a true partnership of equals working together toward common goals. Back on the Earth's dawn, Admiral Parker made her decision about the refugee convoy. She opened a channel to all the ships. "This is Admiral Parker of the Human Alliance. We have reviewed your request for sanctuary." The convoy waited in nervous silence. Ships carrying members of species that supported mutual cooperation and respect may proceed to New Geneva Station for processing. You will be welcomed as refugees and potential alliance members. Several ships in the convoy began moving toward human space. However, ships carrying members of species that demanded humanity's subjugation are denied entry. You are not welcome in Human Alliance territory. 3 Thessian vessels and the Vraxian transports remained motionless. Their communications channels erupted with angry protests. "This is Commander Sylvista of the Thessian cruiser Serpent's Fang. You cannot abandon us to die." "We are not abandoning you," Parker replied calmly. "We are making the same choice you made 5 years ago. Some species are not worthy of our protection, but we have changed. We understand our mistakes now." Understanding and consequences are different things. Find another route to safety. The rejected ships sat in space for several hours, hoping the humans would change their minds. When it became clear that no mercy was coming, they turned away from human space and disappeared into the void. Parker watched them go without emotion. The Human Alliance had learned the most important lesson of all. Respect must be earned and maintained. Species that proved themselves trustworthy were welcomed with open arms. Those that had shown their true nature were left to face the consequences of their choices. As the Earth's dawn resumed its patrol, Parker reflected on how much had changed. 5 years ago, humanity had been junior partners in someone else's empire. Now they led an alliance that stretched across hundreds of systems and grew stronger every day. The former Federation continued its collapse in distant space. Every few months, another desperate transmission arrived begging for human assistance. Each one was politely declined. Humanity had found better friends and built a better future. On the bridge of the Earth's dawn, a young officer asked Parker about the rejected refugee ships. "Admiral, do you think we made the right choice?" Parker looked out at the stars where human and allied ships worked together in perfect harmony. "Lieutenant, some lessons can only be learned through suffering. Some bridges once burned cannot be rebuilt. But what if they really have changed? Then they can prove it by solving their own problems and building something better, just like we did. The Earth's dawn continued on its course, protecting the worlds and species that had chosen cooperation over domination. Behind them, the galaxy burned with the consequences of arrogance and prejudice. Ahead lay unlimited possibilities for those wise enough to treat their partners as equals. The Federation had underestimated humanity and paid the ultimate price. They had lost not just humanity's friendship, but the chance to be part of something greater than any empire the galaxy had ever known.